In Module 3, Lesson 3, we are going to be introduced to something new, and that is a variable. And a variable is when you use a letter to represent the unknown meaning the thing that you don't know in the problem. So this is a really new concept too in some ways because we haven't really talked about variables and using letters. But on the other hand, we've talked a lot about unknowns. So it's really just giving a new name to something that we've already done a little bit of before. So uh, let me show you exactly what I mean. So there's my whiteboard. And we have, for example, this is how we probably would have written, it's definitely how we would have written things in the past. 3 times 6 equals, and we either would have written with a blank or you would have seen 3 times 6 equals like a question mark or something like that. Well, that was fine up to this point, but from now on, you're going to see that unknown, meaning this part, that's the unknown, the thing we don't know. You're going to see that represented by a letter instead. Oops. So let's see, this would be written as 3 times 6 equals C, for example. So then you'd say your answer would be C equals 18, right? So C is just showing, it's a placeholder. It shows the part that we don't know. In a lot of word problems, the letter is going to go along with whatever it is that you're trying to find. So for example, if you had um, 3 batches of 6 cupcakes, how many cupcakes did you have in all? C, being cupcakes, would be 18 cupcakes. It's often like that in word problems, not always, but often. Let's take another look at another example here. Uh, Again, this isn't going to really be much a long video because right there, what I just showed you is basically the entire point. And we'll get a lot of practice with that, but there's not a lot of different ways to say it. It basically is that the unknown is a letter. So a variable equals an unknown that we represent with a letter. Okay, so let's see, you could have um, 4 times 7 equals b, and then you'd solve for b. So you'd say b equals 28. And again, that b is just showing that's the part you don't know. It's the same place that you would have drawn a line or made a question mark. So you've done all that sort of work before. It's just putting a letter in there instead. Now you might run into some problems like 4 times b, actually I'll use a different letter that time. 4 times a equals 28. And you have to figure out what a is. And in this case, a equals 7, which we can find from over here, right? So you can see it that way too. It's not always the answer that you don't know, as we learned about in Module 1. Often it's either the size of the group or the number of groups that you don't know. So those can be represented with letters as well. Here, I'll draw a bunch of different examples for you on this page, and then we'll talk about how to choose the right letter in the right situation. All right, let's see. 3 times 9 equals C. 27 equals C. We'll have 4 times 8 equals A. A equals 32. And then we'll do a different way, like something times 9. So let's see, F times 9 equals 45. F equals 5. Notice sometimes the variable comes on the left, sometimes it comes on the right, doesn't matter. 100 divided by m equals 10. M also equals 10 because 100 divided by 10 is 10. And I don't know, let's make up one more. 7 times r equals 42, r equals 6. So again, those letters are just representing the unknown in these situations. Notice I only used lowercase letters. So usually uh, we use lowercase letters. That's the instruction, is that you're going to use lowercase letters. We're not going to use uppercase letters. And there are some letters you want to avoid when you're doing this. So like, let's make a whole list of those letters to avoid. Like ones we don't want to use as variables, and I'll tell you why here. You'll probably figure out why. So we said we're going to use lowercase letters. So L. Why would I not want to use an L? Well, it looks like a 1. Don't use looks like a 1, and that's a problem. So if I say 4 times L equals 8, you're going to say, well, 4 times 1 doesn't equal 8 because it's going to look like 4 times 1. So don't use a lowercase l. An O looks like a 0. We don't want that. I'll write this out as a 1 up there. One that you're going to see a lot as you get older is an X. This you'll use all the time when you get older, but probably not a great idea right now. So why not now? Because X is the most common. X and Y are generally the most common ones that you'll use as you get older. However, right now, if I wrote 4, 4 times X equals 20, that looks confusing. Having the time symbol be the same as the variable is not something that we really want to do here in 3rd grade. So as you get older, you'll find other ways to write that multiplication symbol. There are a bunch of other ways to do it, but since we use an X right now for that, we're not going to use an X as a variable either. Those are the variables that we sort of stay away from the most, because those are the ones that can really confuse us a little bit. So um, L, O, and X for now. And again, L and O you'll never really use as you get older, but X is one that you will use when you get older, but we're not going to use it here in 3rd grade. All the other letters are up for grabs. Like you can write, uh, you know, S times 3 equals 21. S equals 7. You can write Q, oops, that's a bad Q. Q times 6 equals 36. Q equals 6. All those will work too. Like any other letter you can think of, just not those 3 that I just talked to you about. So again, a variable represents the unknown, and it takes the place of like a question mark or a line. It's work we've done before. We've worked a lot with unknowns. You're just putting a variable in there now, and you're putting a letter in there to hold that place. It's a little bit of a placeholder to show, hey, a number goes here, and then again, when you do your answers are going to look like this, like S equals 7. And that just means that you're going to substitute that number in for that letter. So that's sort of the last point I want to make to you here, is that if we have 20, let's do it. 21 equals, that's a bad problem. Let's do a different one. It's not a bad problem. It's just one I already used. 4 times R equals 24. R equals 6. What that's saying is that anywhere you see an R, you can replace it with a 6. You can go ahead and put a 6 in there to make it true. So if I had 9 times 7 equals P, 63 equals P, which that's saying is that anywhere there's a P in my problem, I can go remove it and put a 63 in there to make it true. So again, the variable represents the unknown, and then once we figured it out and solved it, we can go ahead and swap those letters out for the numbers that make the number sentences correct. All right, guys. New concept, kind of. So like we haven't worked with variables being letters before, but we have worked with unknowns. So we're basically given a new name to something that we've already done. And I hope you followed along okay with that. We're going to get plenty of practice with it here in this module. So this is just sort of our first introduction, and we'll keep working on it.